Alright. Here we go. What's About Me, Part 2. Okay, so I left off when I was, 8. So let's, go on. My mom, when she first got out of high school, of course I wasn't born yet. She graduated, 92. Um, so when she first got out of high school, she did go right to college, but she met my dad, got married, dropped out. Yeah, you know how that is. So she went back, um, when I was in third grade. Yeah, I was in third grade. That's when she went back. So I would, go to school and go home, and I'd be home by myself. Um, I think she had a class. I remember being home by myself. So, I was pretty independent. I mean, my things with my dad was still going on, so he wasn't usually home. He was out getting high or whatever. And I spent a lot of time with my grandma and grandpa. They're still alive. They live right beside us, actually. Um, they live on our farm. Um, so my mom had one night. Dad was home then, thank goodness. One night she got really sick, and she couldn't move or breathe. Really, she was in so much pain. So she got an ambulance came and got her, rushed her to the hospital, and um, her appendix had ruptured, and she had waited. She had been having pain since the morning before, so she'd been waiting 24 hours in. They told her that if she would have waited any longer, it would have killed her. So, but there's a significance to the story. When they went in to take her appendix out, they found that she had this disease called diverticulitis, and what that is inside of the large intestine. The it's thin. The tissue is thin, so foods like popcorn, things like that, like more rough kind, tear through. So she had major infection, um, and that's the reason that her appendix was uh, giving out. So she spent a long time in the hospital. I was always at my grandma's. I stayed with them a lot. Um, while she was in the hospital, I didn't know what was going on. I saw my grandma come out of the hospital a lot crying. Um, I didn't know what to think. I didn't know, was my mom dying? What was happening? She was only 28. I was, like I said, about 9. It was pretty crazy. Um, thinking that I was going to lose my mother. So we thought it was all done and over. No, she ended up having to go back again. And she had to have 8 different incisions. So she's had 3 major stomach surgeries. So that was kind of a big part. And during all this time, again, my dad was out getting high. He wasn't there. They were married, but he wasn't there. So that leads to my dad. Right after my mom got out of the hospital, my dad, he left. He left. We didn't hear from him for a solid week. We didn't even know where he was. So we get a phone call. Mom gets a phone call one night. And he was in the hospital because he had overdosed on pills purposely. He had went out and bought a whole bunch of OxyContin pills and taken them all. I think he downed 2.5 bottles. So that's probably over 100 pills. So yeah, suicide. That's what he was going for. Same way his dad did. My grandpa killed himself. He killed himself by shutting the garage and turning on the car and going to sleep. So that's the peaceful way to do it. Overdosing is not. So he was in the hospital. I remember going in to see him, white as a ghost. Was so skinny. I was surprised he wasn't even dead then. He had tubes down his throat. He wasn't even conscious. He looked dead. I mean, seeing your father like that isn't exactly a good experience, especially knowing that he did it to himself. So the nurse came in and said that he wasn't going to make it. He wasn't going to live. She told my mom to prepare his funeral, go ahead and start preparing, arrangements, because he was not going to live. The chemical levels in his blood were 11 times more than anyone who's ever lived with that level, so, that was kind of pretty good indication he was going to die. But miraculously, it was an absolute miracle he pulled through. He was in there for a couple weeks, and he got out. Pretty cool. Let me check something. Okay, so he went to rehab. It got him off the pills, but it didn't get him off the other stuff. He was on cocaine, too. So he was still on that. So this was about, when this happened, years passed and he was still doing drugs. They would still fight. So that was pretty bad. 6th grade. It was about 6th grade. I'm trying to remember exactly what happened. We were sitting in the living room, and he was high. He was so high. And I just started crying. I asked him to stop. I told him I thought he was going to stop. I thought he was clean. And I didn't understand why he kept hurting us like that. And he said he wasn't hurting anyone but himself, which is true, physically. But he was hurting us, so having to watch him die, it hurt pretty bad, having to watch your father die, because we have so much in common. We're very alike, except for, his nasty drug habits, but, that was the beginning when he started to change. He started getting better. And I thought he was really getting better. Hold on. Sorry, my dogs are in front of me. I thought he was really getting better, but a few months later, we didn't hear from him. He was gone. He was gone for a couple weeks, and we